Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond, where emotions come alive and stories touch the soul. If you enjoy heartfelt, inspiring tales that stay with you long after they end, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world and helps us continue sharing stories that matter. It was just past 6 in the morning, and the sky outside the apartment window was still wrapped in gray. Inside, the kitchen was filled with the faint smell of burnt pancake and instant coffee. Ethan Miller stood in front of the stove, his tired eyes blinking away the weight of another sleepless night. He flipped a pancake that sizzled unevenly on a scratched nonstick pan, the only one he owned. The stove clicked a little as the flame wavered, a small reminder that even the gas bill was overdue. Behind him, at the small wobbly table with one leg propped up by an old book, sat Liam, his 6-year-old son. He was humming softly, playing with a spoon and making little waves in a bowl of soggy cereal. His light brown hair stuck up at odd angles, and his pajamas were a little too short now. He'd grown again. Ethan noticed it quietly, the way only a parent does, and added it to the long mental list of things they couldn't afford right now. He turned with a half-smile and placed the pancake on a chipped plate. "Breakfast for my little champion," he said, kneeling to meet Liam's eyes. He spoke with more energy than he felt. Liam squinted at the food. "It's kinda burnt." Ethan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Burnt is just crispy with attitude. Trust me, chefs charge extra for this." Liam giggled, and for a moment, the heaviness in the room lifted. But it was short-lived. There was a knock at the door. Ethan stood slowly, dread already settling in his chest. He opened it just enough to see what he expected: another eviction notice. Yellow paper. Same wording. Final warning. He closed the door quietly, trying not to let Liam notice the way his shoulders sagged. He folded the paper and slid it into a drawer, hiding it beneath old menus and unpaid utility bills. Ethan walked back to the table, taking a sip of his cold coffee. His phone buzzed once on the counter. He reached for it without much interest, already expecting it to be some junk message or another rejection email. But it wasn't. It was a notification from a local neighborhood app. The post read, "Urgent, private chef needed. CEO seeks cook for child. High pay. Immediate start." He read it twice. Then a third time. His hands trembled a little as he put the phone down. Behind him, Liam's voice broke through the fog in his mind. "Dad, are we gonna be okay?" Ethan turned to him slowly, kneeling again, holding Liam's tiny hand in his. His voice was calm, but something new flickered behind his eyes. A spark. "I think maybe yes. Maybe we will be." He kissed the top of his son's head and stood, looking out the window at the dull, cloudy morning. He didn't know it yet, but that simple message on his phone would become the first step in a journey none of them could have imagined. A journey that began with burnt pancakes and broken dreams, but would soon lead to something beautiful, something whole. And just like that, a door Ethan never thought would open was now waiting. All he had to do was knock. Ethan stood outside the towering glass building, clutching the address scribbled on the back of a receipt. He adjusted the collar of his only clean shirt, worn but neatly pressed, and took a deep breath that barely calmed the storm inside him. The security guard at the front desk eyed him with a raised brow as he stepped inside the marble-floored lobby, his cheap shoes echoing awkwardly against the polished surface. He felt small in a place like this. The kind of building where people wore watches that cost more than his rent and spoke in clipped, confident tones. Ethan didn't belong here, and he knew it. But he also knew he didn't have the luxury of doubt anymore. The receptionist confirmed his name and pointed him toward the private elevator. "Top floor. Miss Hartley is expecting you. Victoria Hartley." The name alone was enough to make half the city pause. CEO of one of the biggest tech firms on the West Coast. Powerful, sharp, always in control. The kind of person who made headlines without trying. The kind of woman whose world never intersected with someone like Ethan. And yet, here he was. The elevator doors opened into an apartment that didn't look like a home, it looked like a lifestyle magazine. Everything was white, sleek, and perfectly in place. The scent of fresh orchids and subtle lavender floated in the air. But despite the perfection, something about it felt cold. Lonely, even. Ethan barely had time to take it in before a voice called out from the hallway. "She's in the dining room. And she's very particular." Victoria Hartley appeared in a cream suit that probably cost more than his car. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her face unreadable. She looked at Ethan for only a second, then turned her attention to the tablet in her hand. "I've hired 5 chefs in the last 2 months, she said without looking up. None lasted more than a week. Ava doesn't like anything. She won't eat pasta. She hates red meat. She says vegetables taste like dirt." Ethan tried to smile politely. "Kids can be picky." Victoria looked up then, her eyes sharp. "She's not just picky. She's hurting. You get 1 shot. Cook her something she likes, and you stay. If not, the door's behind you." Then she was gone, leaving Ethan standing there with nothing but his nerves and the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. In the dining room, Ava sat quietly at a long table, a sketchpad in front of her. She was maybe 7 or 8, with a serious face and big eyes that didn't look up as he walked in. Her hair was neatly braided, and she clutched a pencil like it was armor. "Hey there," Ethan said softly. "I'm Ethan. I heard I might be cooking for you today." She didn't respond. Didn't even blink. He walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and scanned the contents. Imported cheeses. Expensive cuts. Fancy sauces. But none of it felt right. He closed it and took out a small bag he'd brought with him, just in case. He started chopping, sautéing, moving with a rhythm that felt like home. He made something simple. Something comforting. His late wife's lemon chicken soup, the recipe he had memorized not with his mind, but with his heart. The same soup he made for Liam when he had the flu, or when the world felt too big. It was warmth in a bowl. He placed the steaming bowl gently in front of Ava. No pressure. No fuss. "This was my wife's favorite. She used to say it tasted like a hug." Ava didn't move for a long moment. Then, without a word, she lifted the spoon and took a small bite. Ethan watched, barely breathing. She took another. And another. By the time Victoria returned, Ava had nearly finished the bowl. She looked at her mother, then at Ethan, and for the first time that day, she smiled. Victoria stared, stunned. Her voice was quieter now. She smiled, she whispered. "She hasn't smiled in weeks." Ethan didn't say anything. He just smiled back at Ava, the girl who didn't eat anything, now sipping the last of his soup like it was the only thing she'd needed all along. Something shifted in the room. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But real. And Ethan, the man who thought he didn't belong here, had unknowingly just passed the most important test of his life. The days that followed unfolded like something out of a dream Ethan never dared to have. What started as a single bowl of lemon chicken soup turned into a week, then 2, and before he knew it, Ethan was showing up every morning at the Hartley penthouse, wearing the same shirt and jeans he'd washed the night before, ready to cook for a little girl who had once refused to eat anything at all. Ava had changed. Not drastically. Not in ways that outsiders would even notice. But to Ethan, it was clear. She was beginning to open up, little by little, like a flower coaxed by the sun after too many seasons of cold. She no longer frowned at her plate. Instead, she would ask what was for lunch, sometimes even offer to help stir a pot or sprinkle herbs on a dish. She still didn't talk much, but when she did, it was to him. He started telling her stories while he cooked. Silly ones at first, about a talking squirrel who wanted to be a chef, or a dragon who only breathed cinnamon. She listened, quiet and wide-eyed, sketching what she imagined in her notebook. Then, slowly, the stories turned more personal. He told her about his son, Liam, and how he once tried to make spaghetti in the toaster. He spoke about Julia, his wife, not in long sad monologues, but in little memories woven into his cooking. The way she loved garlic bread, how she always danced when she made pancakes, even when life was falling apart. Ava listened more than she spoke, but she began to smile more often, and even laughed once when Ethan dropped an entire bowl of flour on the floor and looked like a ghost. She had laughed so hard she cried. And when Victoria walked in at that very moment, her phone in one hand and her briefcase in the other, she stopped cold at the sound of her daughter's laughter echoing through the house. It was a sound she hadn't heard in months. At first, Victoria remained distant. Focused. Always on calls, always moving. She would greet Ethan with a polite nod, sometimes thank him, but never linger. Until one afternoon when she came home early, quiet and tired, and found Ethan and Ava on the kitchen floor making homemade ravioli. Ava's face was dusted with flour. Ethan had pasta dough stuck to his elbow. They both looked up, startled. "You're home early," Ethan said, brushing off his hands, clearly unsure of what to say. Victoria didn't speak right away. She just stared at the scene in front of her, the joy, the mess, the life. "I canceled a meeting," she finally said. "I figured it could wait." That evening, for the first time, she sat with them at the table. No phone. No laptop. Just a fork in her hand and a quiet wonder in her eyes. She ate the ravioli slowly, really tasting it. And when Ava reached over and offered her the last one, Victoria blinked fast like she was holding something back. After dinner, Ava asked for a story. Ethan looked to Victoria, uncertain, but she nodded. He told them both a quiet tale about a tired bird who forgot how to sing until a kind breeze helped it find its voice again. When it ended, there was silence. The kind that wraps around you, not awkward or empty, but full. Later, as Ethan packed up in the kitchen, Victoria stood in the doorway watching him. "She eats now," she said quietly. "She laughs. She sleeps through the night again." He turned, surprised by the softness in her voice. "You did that," she added, more to herself than to him. "I don't know how, but you did." Ethan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to being seen like that. Not by someone like her. They looked at each other for a moment that lingered longer than it should have. Not romantic. Not yet. But human. Honest. Two people standing on opposite ends of life, realizing maybe they weren't so different after all. In that kitchen, between the smell of basil and warm bread, something invisible had begun to stir. Not just in Ava, not just in Victoria, but in Ethan too. Something healing. Something whole. It was Ava's idea. One afternoon, after polishing off a bowl of Ethan's homemade mac and cheese with roasted tomatoes, something she used to wrinkle her nose at, she sat quietly for a moment, watching him tidy up the kitchen. Then she said it, just like that. "Can you make something special for Mom? Like, really special?" Ethan paused, dish towel in hand. "Special how?" Ava looked thoughtful, her fingers tracing patterns on the table. "Like what you made for me the first time. But different. Fancier, maybe. She works too much. I think she forgot what happy food tastes like." He smiled. "Happy food, huh? I can do that." So, they planned it. Not a party. Not something loud or overdone. Just a dinner. Quiet. Warm. Honest. Ava helped design a menu, a little salad with strawberries and balsamic glaze, roasted lemon chicken with herby potatoes, and a soft chocolate lava cake with a swirl of raspberry on the plate. She wanted candles. Flowers. A table that looked like a hug. Ava even insisted on inviting Liam. "He's your family. He should be there too." That evening, Ethan dressed up as best he could. Clean shirt. Hair combed. A nervous flutter in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Liam wore a button-up shirt that was slightly too big and asked every 5 minutes if it was time to eat yet. Victoria came home to a completely transformed dining room. Soft light from the candles. Fresh lilies in a vase. And 3 place settings. She stopped at the doorway, blinking like she'd walked into the wrong apartment. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. Ava took her hand and led her to the table. "Just dinner. With people who care about you. Victoria sat down slowly, visibly moved but trying not to show it. Liam gave her a small wave. She smiled back, more gently than Ethan had ever seen. The meal was simple, but it was magic. Every bite tasted like comfort and memory and peace. Ava talked more than usual, telling Victoria about the stories Ethan had told her, about her new favorite dish, about how she wanted to learn to cook properly so she could make pancakes without burning them. Victoria listened, not distracted, not distant. Just present. It was the first time in months she looked like a mother instead of a CEO. Then, as Ethan served the lava cake, Ava put down her fork and looked directly at her mother. "Mom," she said softly, "can Ethan be my dad?" The room went still. Ethan froze, holding the dessert plate halfway to the table. Victoria looked up, her eyes wide, her breath caught somewhere between surprise and something deeper, something unspoken. Ava wasn't joking. She wasn't playing. She looked at her mom the way children do when they know the truth before the grown-ups catch up. Victoria didn't respond right away. Her eyes welled up, her lips parted, but no words came. She looked at Ethan, and for the first time, she didn't see him as the cook, or the helper, or the man with sad eyes and good hands. She saw the man who had brought her daughter back to life. The man who had shown up every day without asking for anything in return. The man who had healed without ever touching the broken pieces directly. Ethan set the plate down gently and sat beside Liam, unsure of what to say. He didn't want to overstep. But he couldn't deny that the question had stirred something deep inside him too. Something he hadn't dared to imagine. They finished dessert in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of something new. A moment suspended in time, where all three of them sat on the edge of something unknown, something possible. When Victoria stood to clear the plates, she touched Ethan's shoulder gently. "Stay a little longer," she asked. And he did. He stood slowly, walked around the table, and pulled both Victoria and Ava into his arms. No promises. No grand declarations. Just love. Quiet, real, and finally complete. And in that moment, in a home that once felt like stone and silence, laughter and love took root. A struggling single father, a grieving daughter, a guarded mother, three broken hearts finding their way back to joy. Because sometimes, the family we need finds us when we least expect it. Thank you for listening to this story on Storytelling and Beyond. If this tale touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need a little hope, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional, powerful, and inspiring stories to life. We have so much more to share with you because every story matters, and sometimes, just hearing the right one can change everything.